You suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca's words have echoed across centuries because they reveal a truth most people spend years trying to outrun. But what if the person you can't stop thinking about is no longer the one holding you captive? What if the prison was never built by their absence, but by your own mind refusing to leave the place where they once stood? Somewhere tonight, someone is lying awake in a dark room, replaying the same conversation for the 100th time. They wonder what they should have said. They imagine what might have happened if they had stayed a little longer, loved a little harder, texted one more time, or walked away just a little later. The face changes. The story changes. The years pass. Yet the pattern remains almost identical. It feels like love. It feels like loyalty. It even feels noble to keep carrying someone in your heart long after they have disappeared from your life. But there is a quiet question almost nobody dares to ask. If thinking about them hurts you every single day, why does your mind keep returning to the very place where it knows it will suffer? Maybe you tell yourself that time will fix everything. Maybe you hope that one morning you will wake up and realize they are finally gone from your thoughts. Yet days become months. Months become years. A familiar song plays in a grocery store. A street corner reminds you of a forgotten afternoon. A stranger laughs with the same voice. Suddenly they are back again, as vivid as if they had never left. It is exhausting, not because you are weak, but because your own mind has become a storyteller that refuses to end the same chapter. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself that the soul becomes colored by the nature of its thoughts. Think about that for a moment. If every day begins and ends with the same memories, the same questions, and the same longing, what color has your inner world slowly become? You may believe you are remembering another person, but perhaps what you are really holding on to is an older version of yourself, the one who still believed that everything would turn out differently. That possibility is far more unsettling than heartbreak itself, because if it is true, then letting go has never been about forgetting them. It has always been about facing something within yourself that you have carefully avoided. The Stoics understood that the hardest battles are rarely fought in public. They happen in complete silence. They happen inside a mind that cannot stop returning to what it can no longer change. And before we can talk about freedom, peace, or letting go, we have to step into that silent battlefield together. Because the greatest mistake most people make is believing they already know why they cannot stop thinking about someone. They almost never do. There is a strange kind of loneliness that appears even when your life looks full from the outside. You go to work. You answer emails. You laugh at a joke during lunch. You stop by the grocery store on your way home. You pay your bills. You make dinner. Nothing dramatic happens. Yet somewhere beneath every ordinary moment, there's a quiet pull, almost like a current beneath calm water, drawing your thoughts back to the same person again and again. Sometimes it happens without warning. You reach for your phone during a break, not because you expect a message, but because some hidden part of you still wonders if today might be different. You know their name will not appear. You have told yourself that countless times. Still, your thumb hesitates for just a second before the screen lights up. That second is enough to remind you that something inside you has not moved on. Other times the memories arrive in places that seem completely unrelated. You see a couple choosing paint colors in a hardware store. You notice someone wearing the same jacket they used to wear. You hear a laugh across a crowded parking lot that sounds almost identical. Suddenly your mind begins stitching together pieces of a life that no longer exists. It is remarkable how quickly the present disappears when memory takes over. And perhaps the hardest part is not missing them. It is feeling embarrassed that you still do. You start negotiating with yourself. Why am I still thinking about this? Everyone else seems to move on. Maybe there is something wrong with me. Those thoughts become heavier than the memories themselves. Now you're not only grieving a person, you're judging yourself for grieving too long. So you hide it. You smile when friends ask how you are doing. You tell them you are fine because explaining the truth feels exhausting. How could you describe a wound that does not bleed but somehow follows you into every quiet moment? Then another voice appears. It whispers that maybe this endless thinking means they were your soulmate. Maybe the pain proves the connection was real. Maybe forgetting them would somehow erase everything beautiful that once existed. That idea feels comforting for a moment. It gives meaning to the suffering. It also chains you to it. Without realizing it, you begin protecting the very thoughts that keep you awake at night. You revisit old messages. You replay old smiles. You preserve old disappointments as carefully as treasured photographs. You are no longer simply remembering the past. You are maintaining it. This is where the experience becomes deeply confusing. Part of you desperately wants peace. Another part quietly fears what life would feel like without this familiar ache. If the memories finally disappeared, who would you become? If the story ended, what would be left to hold on to? Few people ever admit that question out loud because it sounds irrational, yet it lives inside countless hearts. The Stoics believed that every lasting struggle begins with a mistaken judgment so ordinary that we rarely notice it. Before we can understand why your mind refuses to let go, we have to uncover the silent belief it has been protecting all along. And that belief is far different from what most people imagine. Most people never question the story because the story feels true. I can't stop thinking about them because they meant everything to me. It sounds honest. It sounds romantic. It even sounds like the kind of sentence people applaud in movies and songs. But the Stoics had a habit that made them different from almost everyone around them. Before accepting any thought, they asked a quieter question. Is this reality, or is this my interpretation of reality? That single question changes everything. Epictetus devoted much of his teaching to one simple observation. We are disturbed not by events themselves, but by the judgments we attach to them. Notice what he did not say. He did not deny grief. He did not pretend loss was easy. He simply pointed towards something most of us never examine. Between what happens and what we feel, there is a hidden space where the mind creates meaning. Imagine finding an old ticket stub tucked inside a jacket pocket. To another person, it is nothing more than a faded piece of paper. To you, it becomes an entire evening. The restaurant, the conversation, the drive home, the hopes you carried without saying them aloud. The paper did not create the emotion. Your interpretation did. Now expand that idea. Every photograph, every place, every anniversary, every memory, none of them arrive carrying pain inside them. Your mind gives them that weight. It wraps them in meaning until they become almost too heavy to hold. This is why two people can live through nearly identical heartbreaks and emerge in completely different ways. One carries the experience like a scar that quietly reminds them they survived. The other carries it like a chain that follows them into every new relationship, every new opportunity, every peaceful moment that might have become a fresh beginning. The difference is not what happened. The difference is the story each person continues telling after everyone else has stopped listening. There is another belief hiding beneath the surface, and it is even more persuasive. You tell yourself that letting go means declaring that none of it mattered. That if you finally stop thinking about them, you are somehow betraying the love you once felt. So your mind creates an impossible bargain. Stay attached, and the past remains meaningful. Release it, and everything disappears. Yet pause for a moment. Has constantly replaying these memories honored what was beautiful? Or has it slowly transformed something precious into a source of daily suffering? The Stoics would gently challenge that bargain. They believed memory could exist without captivity. Appreciation could exist without possession. Love could exist without dependence. Those ideas sound almost impossible when the heart is still aching. That is why they must be approached carefully, not as slogans, but as discoveries. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to examine every impression before allowing it to settle into his character. Not every thought deserved belief simply because it appeared. Not every feeling deserved permanent residence simply because it was intense. There is extraordinary freedom hidden inside that discipline, but it requires something most of us resist. It requires looking directly at the thoughts we have been protecting for years and asking whether they are actually telling the truth. And once you begin asking that question honestly, Another one quietly rises behind it, waiting to change everything you thought you knew about letting go. Picture an old movie theater just after midnight. The audience has gone home. The lights are off. The screen is blank. Yet the projector keeps spinning, throwing the same film onto an empty canvas over and over again. No one is watching anymore except the projectionist, who has forgotten that he is the one keeping the machine running. That image is closer to your inner life than you might realize. One of the most painful beliefs we carry is that healing will happen automatically if enough time passes. We tell ourselves, give it a few more months. Then those months quietly become another year. The calendar changes. The seasons change. Your clothes change. Your address might even change. But inside, the same scene continues playing with astonishing precision. Time does not rewrite a story that your mind insists on rehearsing every day. Another quiet illusion follows close behind. We believe closure is something another person gives us. We wait for one final conversation, one perfect apology, one honest explanation, one message that finally makes everything make sense. Until then, we postpone our own peace. It is like standing outside an airport long after the last flight has departed, because you're convinced someone will eventually unlock the gate just for you. Everyone else has already gone home. Only you remain, staring at a runway that has become part of your identity. There is also the belief that pain proves devotion. Many people fear that if the ache fades, the relationship must not have been real after all. So they unconsciously protect the sadness as if it were the last surviving piece of love. Think about a sailor who survives a violent storm by clinging to a heavy wooden plank. While the waves are crashing, that plank saves his life. But once he reaches the shore, he refuses to let go. He drags it across the sand. He carries it through the streets. He sleeps beside it every night because it once kept him alive. The very thing that rescued him slowly becomes the thing that prevents him from walking freely again. Few people recognize when comfort quietly transforms into captivity. Life offers endless examples of this. A man keeps checking the social media profile of someone who left years ago, not because he expects anything new, but because the habit itself feels familiar. A woman still imagines conversations that will never happen while driving home after work, filling the silence with words no one will ever hear. Neither of them chooses suffering on purpose. They simply mistake repetition for connection. They believe that continuing to revisit the past keeps something precious alive, when in reality, it only keeps the wound from closing. The tragedy is not that they remember. The tragedy is that they stop seeing the present because they are constantly looking through yesterday's window. The Stoics noticed that the human mind has an extraordinary talent for decorating its own cages until they begin to resemble homes. We become so accustomed to familiar pain that freedom itself starts to feel unfamiliar, even frightening. If that sounds uncomfortable, it should, because there is one assumption hiding beneath all the others, one silent belief so deeply rooted that most people never think to question it. And until that belief is brought into the light, every attempt to let go will feel like pushing against a locked door that was never actually locked. Without realizing it, you have already been standing at the edge of the answer. The difficulty is that your mind has been looking in the wrong direction. Every time the memories return, your instinct is to ask, how do I make them disappear? The Stoics would have asked a different question entirely. What am I asking these memories to give me? That small shift sounds almost insignificant, yet it changes the entire landscape. Imagine someone carrying an empty glass through a rainstorm. They keep holding it toward the sky, hoping it will finally fill. Hours pass. Their arm grows tired. They become frustrated with the weather. They never notice that they are standing beside a clear mountain spring. The problem is not that water is unavailable. The problem is where they keep searching for it. Many of us do something remarkably similar after losing someone. We believe peace is still connected to the person who left. We imagine that somewhere inside another conversation, another explanation, or another chance is the feeling we have been missing. So every memory becomes another attempt to collect from a place that can no longer provide what we seek. Epictetus spent his life returning to one quiet distinction. Some things belong to us, and some do not. Most people hear those words as a rule about control. They are much more intimate than that. Your attention belongs to you. Your judgments belong to you. The direction of your inner life belongs to you. Another person's choices never did. Their affection never did. Their willingness to stay never did. Yet notice how easily the mind reverses that order. We spend years trying to manage what has never been ours while neglecting the one place where genuine freedom has always been waiting. There's a reason the same memories return with such persistence. The brain is not trying to punish you. It is trying to complete a pattern it believes is unfinished. Modern psychology describes this tendency through rumination and prediction. The mind revisits emotionally charged experiences because it keeps searching for a different ending, as though enough analysis might eventually rewrite the past. But the past is not a puzzle waiting to be solved. It is a chapter that has already been written. Every return to it strengthens the familiar path, making the journey easier to repeat. Tomorrow, suddenly, the struggle begins to look different. Perhaps you're not trapped because your love was too deep. Perhaps you are trapped because your attention has learned the same route so well that it travels there automatically. That realization is neither an accusation nor a reason for shame. It is the first glimpse of possibility. A path that was learned can also be left behind, not through force, not through pretending the memories never existed. Something quieter must happen first. Before the mind can stop chasing what is gone, it has to discover that it already possesses something far more stable than any relationship could ever offer. The Stoics called it an inner freedom. But understanding those words intellectually is very different from experiencing them. And that experience begins with a distinction so subtle that most people overlook it for their entire lives. Have you ever noticed how quickly the mind labels a feeling as an identity? You do not simply experience sadness. You begin saying, "I am heartbroken." You do not simply feel longing. You quietly become the person who longs. That change seems harmless, yet it is where much of our suffering takes root. The Stoics observed something remarkably subtle. Emotions arrive like weather. They move across the landscape of the mind. But the human tendency is to build a house inside the storm instead of waiting for the sky to change. Marcus Aurelius often wrote to himself as though he were gently interrupting his own thoughts. He never demanded that his emotions disappear. Instead, he reminded himself to step back and see them for what they were. Passing impressions, temporary movements, visitors rather than owners. There's profound humility in that way of seeing. It allows you to admit that your heart is hurting without surrendering your entire life to the hurt. Think about standing beside a river at sunrise. Leaves drift across the surface. Some move slowly. Others spin in circles before disappearing downstream. You would never believe the river becomes each leaf that touches it. Yet when thoughts pass through the mind, we often assume every one of them defines who we are. I miss them. I ruined everything. I'll never love again. Each thought arrives, and before we realize it, we climb onto it as though it were carrying us toward the truth. The paradox is that the harder you struggle against these thoughts, the stronger they seem to become. Tell yourself not to think about someone, and the mind almost laughs at the command. It immediately produces another memory, another imagined conversation, another version of the future that never happened. The Stoics never asked us to wage war against the mind because they understood that resistance can become another form of attachment. Fighting every thought still places that thought at the center of your attention. Instead, they cultivated something quieter. They practiced the discipline of noticing. Noticing without immediately agreeing. Noticing without immediately obeying. Noticing without turning every emotion into a verdict about their lives. This kind of self-command does not make a person cold. In fact, it often makes them more deeply human. They still love. They still grieve. They still remember. The difference is that they no longer confuse the movement of the heart with the direction of their life. Imagine a skilled sailor crossing rough water. He does not shout at the wind for blowing. He does not demand that the waves become calm before he takes hold of the wheel. He accepts that the sea has its own nature while quietly tending to his own. That is the strange freedom Stoicism keeps pointing toward. Not freedom from emotion, but freedom within emotion. The waves continue to rise and fall, yet something inside remains capable of choosing its course. At first, this sounds almost impossible. After all, if your feelings are no longer meant to dictate your path, what should? What becomes the steady hand on the wheel when memory, desire, regret, and hope are all pulling in different directions at once? The answer is not found by suppressing the heart. It begins with discovering what has been quietly waiting beneath all the noise, something the Stoics believed every person already possesses, but very few ever learn to trust. At some point, the question quietly changes. It is no longer, why can't I? Stop thinking about them. It becomes, what am I actually trying to recover? That is a very different question. Sit with it for a moment. Strip away the face, the name, the memories, the unfinished conversations. What remains? Most people discover something surprising. They're not searching for one person as much as they are searching for a feeling. The feeling of being chosen. The feeling of certainty. The feeling that tomorrow made sense because someone was expected to be in it. The mind is clever. It wraps those feelings inside the image of another human being until the two become impossible to separate. Then one day that person leaves, and the mind concludes that everything wrapped inside them is left as well. This is where the Stoics invite us to make a distinction that changes the entire landscape. A person can accompany your peace, but they cannot become its source. The moment your peace depends on someone else's presence, it no longer belongs to you. It belongs to chance. It belongs to circumstances. It belongs to another will that you have never been able to command. That realization is not meant to make love smaller. It is meant to make you freer within love. Imagine a musician who believes the beauty of every performance comes from a single violin. One night the instrument is stolen. For months he refuses to play because he is convinced the music disappeared with it. Then an old teacher quietly asks him, "Did the music ever live inside the wood?" The question feels almost insulting at first. Of course not. The music lived in the hands, the ear, the years of practice, the invisible discipline no one else could see. The violin revealed the music. It never created it. Relationships often work the same way. Someone may awaken tenderness that was already within you. They may reveal courage, generosity, laughter, hope, or devotion that have been sleeping quietly inside your own character. When they leave, those qualities do not leave with them. Only the mirror disappears. Yet many people spend years mourning the mirror while forgetting to look for the person it was reflecting all along. Suddenly the grief begins to change shape. You realize you have been chasing not the individual, but the version of yourself you believed only existed beside them. That version was never borrowed. It was always yours. The relationship simply introduced you to it. This is the paradox that catches so many people by surprise. Letting go is not an act of erasing love. It is an act of reclaiming authorship over the parts of yourself that you accidentally handed to another person. Epictetus would likely smile at this discovery because it returns everything to the place he always pointed toward. Your character, your judgments, your capacity for wisdom, your ability to choose the next step. Those have been quietly waiting for you from the very beginning. Once you glimpse that truth, another possibility appears, one even more unsettling and far more liberating. What if the person you have been searching for since the day they left has never been them at all? What if, without realizing it, you have been searching for yourself? Try imagining that tomorrow unfolds exactly as it usually does. Your alarm goes off. You pour a cup of coffee. The morning light falls across the kitchen counter in the same familiar way. Nothing extraordinary happens. Yet one quiet difference begins to appear. The memory still arrives, but it no longer rushes into the center of the room. It passes through like a familiar stranger. You notice it. You acknowledge it. Then you return to the simple task already in front of you. For most of us, that sounds almost too ordinary to matter. We expect healing to feel dramatic. We imagine a single breakthrough where the pain disappears forever. Stoicism rarely works that way. It changes the direction of a life through moments so small that they almost escape attention. You're driving home after a long day, stopped at a red light where you once waited together. For years, that intersection belonged to the past. Every visit reopened the same chapter. But today, something unexpected happens. You notice the sky turning orange above the buildings. You hear children laughing in a nearby park. The light changes to green, and for the first time in a long while, your attention follows the road instead of the memory. Nothing about the intersection changed, only the place where your awareness chose to rest. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that life is made only of the present moment, not because the past lacks meaning, but because the present is the only place where character can actually be lived. Every decision that shapes your future happens here, inside this breath, this conversation, this ordinary afternoon that seems too small to matter until thousands of similar moments quietly become a new life. The same shift begins appearing in places where you never expected it. Someone mentions their name in passing, and instead of feeling your entire body tighten, you simply hear another name. A favorite song starts playing in a coffee shop, and rather than rushing to escape, you let the music finish. The emotion still visits, but it no longer gives orders. There is dignity in that kind of freedom because it asks for no performance. No one around you notices. They see the same person ordering lunch, walking the dog, folding laundry on a Sunday evening. Yet inside, something almost invisible has begun to reorganize itself. You're no longer measuring the day by how often you thought about them. You begin measuring it by how fully you inhabited your own life. That is a completely different way of living. Seneca believed that the richest life belongs to the person who truly possesses their own mind. Not the person with the fewest losses. Not the person with the easiest circumstances. The one who is no longer carried away by every passing impression. Such a person does not become indifferent to love. They become available to life again. And perhaps that is the greatest surprise. The more your attention returns to the life unfolding before you, the less you need to force yourself to let go. Something else begins happening on its own. The memories lose their urgency because they are no longer competing against an empty present. They are simply becoming part of a much larger story. Yet there remains one final misunderstanding, one subtle habit of the heart that can quietly undo all of this progress if it goes unnoticed. It is so common that almost everyone mistakes it for wisdom, when in reality, it is one of the last chains keeping the mind tied to yesterday. Months from now, if you continue walking this quieter path, the change will probably not announce itself. There will be no dramatic mourning when you suddenly realize you have one. In fact, you may not notice anything at all until an ordinary moment reveals that you have become someone different. Perhaps you hear that they have started dating someone else. Once, that news would have hollowed out your entire day. Now it still lands, but it no longer settles at the center of your life. There's a brief ache, a human ache, and then something unexpected follows. Space. Enough space to breathe before reacting. Enough space to choose your next thought instead of being carried away by the first one. That space is almost invisible, yet it changes everything. You begin noticing other shifts that are just as quiet. Silence no longer feels like an empty room waiting to be filled with memories. It starts feeling like a place where your own thoughts can finally be heard again. Weekends stop feeling like reminders of what is missing. They become opportunities to discover what has been waiting patiently beneath the noise. A walk through your neighborhood no longer serves as a museum of old emotions. It becomes simply a walk. The trees are just trees again. The streets are just streets. The world slowly returns to itself. One of the strangest transformations is that you stop asking life to move backward. For a long time, every hope secretly pointed toward the past. Even your dreams about the future were often disguised attempts to recover what had already ended. Then, almost without realizing it, your imagination begins facing another direction. You find yourself becoming curious again. Curious about people you have not met, places you have not visited, conversations that have not happened. You are no longer trying to recreate a chapter. You are willing to read the next one. This is not because the old chapter became meaningless. It is because your identity is no longer trapped inside it. The Stoics believe that character is revealed not in extraordinary moments, but in the repeated choices that shape it. Ordinary life. Looking back, you may discover that your greatest victories were never visible from the outside. They happened each time you allowed a memory to pass without chasing it. Each time you returned your attention to the person standing in front of you instead of the one who is absent. Each time you accepted reality without demanding that it become something else. None of those moments felt heroic. Together, they quietly rebuilt your freedom. There is another surprising consequence. You become gentler toward other people. Once you understand how difficult it is to release your own attachments, you stop expecting perfection from everyone else. Compassion grows naturally because you recognize the hidden battles almost every person carries beneath a calm expression. Strength and kindness stop feeling like opposites. They become companions. Yet even after all of this, one final paradox remains. It is the insight that separates temporary relief from lasting peace. Many people believe that the goal of letting go is to stop loving. The Stoics would have found that idea deeply mistaken. The deepest freedom begins not when love disappears, but when love itself is transformed into something that no longer asks the past to become the present. That final paradox changes everything, and it is where our journey now leads. Imagine holding a handful of sand at the edge of the ocean. Your first instinct is to close your fist as tightly as possible. You are afraid that if you loosen your grip, every grain will disappear. But the harder you squeeze, the faster the sand slips through your fingers. When at last you open your hand, only a few grains remain. This is one of the oldest paradoxes hidden inside the human heart. We believe that holding on preserves what we love. More often, it only preserves our fear of losing it. The Stoics understood something that still feels almost impossible to accept. Love reaches its highest form not when it possesses, but when it allows reality to remain reality. Marcus Aurelius spent his life surrounded by uncertainty. Friend died, children died, armies marched, empires shifted. Nothing around him stayed fixed for long. Yet instead of trying to freeze life in place, he trained himself to admire it precisely because it was temporary. He never confused permanence with value. A sunset does not become beautiful because it lasts forever. It becomes beautiful because it cannot. Relationships belong to that same quiet truth. The mind often whispers another story. It says that if someone was truly meant for you, they would never have left. Or it says that if they left, then everything you shared must have been an illusion. Notice how extreme those conclusions are. They leave no room for the possibility that something can be deeply meaningful without being permanent. Think about a traveler who spends one unforgettable evening in a small mountain town. The people are kind. The air is cool. Music drifts through the streets. The memory stays with him for the rest of his life. Yet he does not buy the entire town simply because he loved visiting it. He understands that the experience was never diminished by its ending. In fact, its ending gave it shape. Human relationships often ask us to learn the same lesson, but our hearts resist it. We mistake gratitude for ownership. We mistake memory for obligation. We mistake endings for failures. Then we wonder why peace remains so far away. Here is the paradox. The moment you stop demanding that the past continue into the present, the past finally becomes something you can carry without being crushed by it. Love changes its form. It no longer stands behind you, pulling you backward. It quietly walks beside you as wisdom. You stop asking, why didn't they stay? And begin asking, what did this experience awaken in me that I can now carry into the rest of my life? Those are entirely different lives disguised as different questions. Seneca often wrote that fortune merely lends us what we mistakenly call our own. People, opportunities, health, success, even time itself, alone is not a theft when it is eventually returned. It is simply the nature of the agreement. That idea may sound severe at first, but hidden inside, it is extraordinary tenderness. If nothing was ever guaranteed to remain forever, then every shared conversation, every ordinary morning, every quiet smile was already a gift before it became a memory. And once you begin seeing life through that lens, another realization slowly emerges. Letting go is no longer about losing someone. It becomes an act of honoring what was given without demanding what was never promised. Yet there is still one final step. Knowing this truth is not the same as living it. There comes a moment when philosophy must stop being something you admire and become something you quietly practice every ordinary day. Look back for a moment, not at the person who left, but the path your own mind has traveled. At first, everything seemed to point outward. You believed the answer lived inside another text message, another memory, another explanation, another version of the past that never arrived. Then little by little, something began to shift. Not because life became easier, but because your attention stopped searching for freedom where freedom had never existed. This is the quiet architecture of Stoicism. It is not a collection of clever quotes meant to comfort you for a difficult afternoon. It is a way of arranging your inner world so that circumstances no longer determine who you become. Every idea we have explored is connected. They are not separate lessons. They are parts of the same foundation. When you realize that your judgments shape your suffering, you begin examining your thoughts instead of obeying them. When you see that another person's choices were never yours to command, you stop negotiating with reality. When you discover that emotions can be experienced without becoming your identity, you recover the space to choose your response. And when you understand that love does not require possession, gratitude quietly replaces desperation. None of these insights stand alone. Each one supports the next until they become something stronger than advice. They become a way of seeing. That is why Stoicism has survived for more than 2,000 years. Human technology has changed beyond recognition. We carry phones instead of scrolls. We cross the country in hours instead of months. We can speak instantly with someone thousands of miles away. Yet the human mind still struggles with rejection, attachment, fear, regret, and longing exactly as it did in ancient Rome. The names have changed. The notifications are new. The emotional machinery remains astonishingly familiar. Marcus Aurelius never worried about unread messages or social media, but he understood what it meant to have his attention pulled away from the present. Epictetus never spoke about dating apps, yet he knew the suffering created when we tie our peace to another person's decisions. Seneca never watched relationships unfold through glowing screens, but he recognized how desire becomes restless whenever it forgets the difference between what is given and what is owed. Their wisdom endures because it addresses the structure of the mind rather than the details of the age. This is why Stoicism does not ask you to become less loving. It asks you to become less divided within yourself. It does not ask you to erase memory. It asks you to stop making memory responsible for your future. It does not promise that you will never lose someone again. It quietly prepares you to remain whole even when life changes without your permission. There is immense dignity in that kind of strength because it is invisible. No applause follows it. No one hands you a medal for choosing peace instead of obsession on a Tuesday afternoon. Yet those unnoticed moments slowly become the shape of your character. They become the difference between merely surviving loss and allowing loss to refine you. Everything now comes down to one final realization. Philosophy has carried you to the edge of the doorway, but only life can show you what it feels like to step through it. And the person waiting on the other side may surprise you more than anyone you have spent this entire journey trying to forget. Perhaps 6 months have passed, not because healing follows a calendar, but because enough ordinary days have quietly gathered together to become a different life. One evening you're sitting by a window as the sun slips below the horizon. There is no special occasion, no dramatic breakthrough, just the soft rhythm of another day coming to an end. Then a thought of them appears, almost as if an old friend has knocked. Gently at the door, you notice it. You smile with unexpected kindness. And then, without forcing anything, you let it continue on its way. That simple moment would have been impossible for the version of you who began this journey. Back then, every memory demanded an answer. Every emotion felt like a command. Every unanswered question seemed too important to release. Now the questions no longer own you. Some of them remain unanswered, and that is no longer a tragedy. It is simply part of being human. There is a quiet maturity that arrives when you stop expecting life to explain every ending. You begin to understand that peace is not built from certainty. It is built from trust. Trust that you can meet whatever comes next without abandoning yourself. This is why the Stoics spoke so often about character instead of circumstance. Circumstances change with astonishing speed. A relationship begins. A relationship ends. A phone rings. A house grows silent. Seasons turn without asking permission. Yet character grows in the spaces between those events. It grows each time you choose honesty over illusion, presence over obsession, gratitude over possession. You may even notice something unexpected happening when you remember the person who once occupied so much of your inner world. Instead of asking why they left, you quietly wish them well. Not because you suddenly agree with everything that happened. Not because the past became painless, but because carrying resentment has become heavier than carrying compassion. Forgiveness, in the Stoic sense, is not declaring that every wound was acceptable. It is refusing to allow an old wound to become the architect of your future. That decision is one of the deepest forms of freedom a person can experience. As your attention settles more fully into the present, life begins revealing details that were always there. The smell of rain before a summer storm. The warmth of a coffee mug between your hands on a cold morning. A conversation with someone who listens without needing to solve you. A quiet walk at dusk when the world seems content simply to exist. None of these moments erase the past. They gently remind you that your life has never stopped unfolding. The chapter you feared would define everything has become exactly what every chapter is meant to become, a part of a much larger story. There is no need to rush toward the ending of that story tonight. There is no finish line waiting for you to cross. There is only this moment, complete enough to be lived without borrowing from yesterday or demanding guarantees from tomorrow. The Stoics believe that this simple return to the present is where freedom quietly begins. And now, after everything we have explored together, only one thing remains. Not another argument, not another explanation, just a final thought, offered with the same quiet honesty that began this journey, and perhaps a silence spacious enough for you to hear something that has been waiting inside you all along. The next time their name drifts into your mind, do not rush to push it away. Do not panic because the memory returned. Do not measure your healing by whether you remembered. Measure it by who you become while remembering. There is an important difference. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He was not writing to strangers. He was writing to himself. He understood that philosophy is at its most honest when it becomes an intimate conversation between the person you are today and the person you hope to become tomorrow. Perhaps that is what this entire journey has really been. Not a lesson about forgetting another human being, but a quiet conversation with yourself that was waiting to happen. Somewhere along the way, you may have discovered that the person you were trying so desperately to release was never the only thing holding you in place. There was fear. There was hope that refused to change its shape. There was the version of yourself who believed peace could only exist if the past returned. Now you know something different. Peace does not arrive carrying yesterday in its hands. It arrives the moment you stop asking yesterday to carry today. Imagine an old oak tree standing alone in an open field. Through the years, it has watched storms bend its branches, winters strip away every leaf, and summers cover it with life again. It does not argue with the seasons. It does not cling to the leaves that have already fallen. Yet when spring returns, it blooms once more without resentment toward winter. There's something profoundly stoic about that quiet rhythm. The tree loses much, but it never loses its nature. Perhaps that is the invitation waiting for all of us. Not to become untouched by loss, but to remain faithful to our own nature even after loss is visited. To remain capable of kindness after disappointment. To remain open after heartbreak. To remain grateful for what was shared instead of imprisoned by what could not remain. One day, perhaps years from now, you may struggle to remember the exact sound of their voice. The sharp edges of certain memories will soften. Details you once thought impossible to forget will slowly dissolve in time. At first, that realization may feel bittersweet. Then, if you have truly understood the Stoic path, another feeling quietly takes its place. Gratitude, not because everything ended the way you wanted, but because it happened at all. Because for a brief chapter of your life, two paths crossed. Something was learned. Something inside you awakened. And now, that awakening belongs to you forever. The past no longer asks to be relived. It simply asks to be honored and then gently placed back into the hands of time. As the evening grows quieter and the last light fades beyond the horizon, there is nothing left to solve. No final argument to win. No memory to erase. Only this single moment, steady and complete, waiting to be lived. And perhaps, for the first time in a very long while, when your thoughts become still, you will discover that the one you were waiting to come back was never another person. It was always the quiet self that had been patiently waiting for you to return.